live. Hello, everyone. Let's see. Is this going to work? Is this going to make my dreams happy, or is it going to crash and burn? We will see. We will see. We will see. Hello, everyone. Right then. So, I have no idea what I really look like. You could be hearing me. You could be not hearing me. I have no idea at the moment. I will only know by the chat. So, my response to everything weird I do will be delayed. Now, there are some slight differences from advertisement this evening in that, well, one difference is I've got burgers, which is always nice. That's, in a nice way, I've got burgers plural, because the burgers are my dinner and my lunch, because I missed my lunch, of course, and being in charge of everyone. So, you know, a bit of a lag, occasional freezing. Okay. You can't hear me when I lean back. All right. Keep skipping. Let's see what we can do. Just going to pause a little. Looks okay at this point. What's the problem coming in? Warning. Ah, yes, it's that stuff. It's lovely. Give me a second. Probably going to have to involve me. Hopefully, that is better. Because hopefully, that takes everything down to an acceptable amount for this. It's going to be fun. Hopefully, YouTube doesn't complain about it too much. It's not going to like this resolution as it's a bit below what it prefers, but it should be okay. It should be okay. It should be happy with it. He says. If that doesn't work, I have a backup methodology in mind. Backup methodology might work better. So let's see what happens. I think I might be forced to go with the backup methodology, just quickly. What do we say? Is this okay? Sounds good. Occasional skips. Did you run a speed test on the connection using? No, I didn't. I've dialed everything down as low as I can, hoping that's okay for it. Now. Works. Hopefully. Currently 30 frames a second a bit, and it's changing, and yeah, that will hopefully work better. Yes. Because also, that means to an extent, I can divide the signal. And we can always hope that helps. So hello everyone. The sync is on, everything apparently is working. And we will see. We will see if this works. It's got a very distracting little circle-to-circle thing, which either means it's a good thing and it means it's working, or it means it's not working. Which I'm hoping it means it's working. I don't mind, I do have a Streamlabs watermark. Yes, I have gone to Streamlabs for my phone. So hopefully the watermark isn't atrocious, but hey ho.
How are you all doing? Hope you're well. Now the audio is weird. Yes, the audio is weird. The audio is from the phone. Is it worth spending the £60 for 2 nights in Manchester the 15th and 7th of May and visiting Western Roaches and IW off? Yes. Well, audio is terrible, but we have audio. That is the important thing. Hello, John Shea. Hello, Newman. Hello, nice to take one. Good Lord, you're all checking in. Hello, Graham. I'm going to have to have a better backup for this for going away to Canada, aren't I? I'm going to have to, if I'm going to do lives from Canada, I'm going to have to have a backup than having to use my poor phone. Hello, Geo Guy. Hello, Andrew Paul. Hello, how are you doing? Well. Right then. Ooh. Also interesting discussion going. Hello, Christopher Ryan. Hello, George Newman. Hello, 96831. Hello, Cody85. Hello, Calvin Gasberg. Hello, Jonathan Burrow. Hello, Albazaski. Hello, DG40. Rapper is back. Hello, Dan Freeman. Hello, Anuk. Hello. Hello, everyone. How are we all doing? Hello, Colin Cameron. Hello. Hello, Stephen McDevitt. Hello, Yickers. Hello, Malaga. Well, seeing as tonight's all about me answering questions, tonight should be okay, hopefully. And hello, Yickers. And hello, Steve Richards. Occasional freezing, but now we see you. That's good. Basically, I can see live broadcast details of things on the Streamlabs system, which is quite fun. And that's also working through the wonderful Wi-Fi of Travelodge. It is pretty good. Now, there was going to be no books. But it's not my office today. Ooh. Jonathan Barra, here, but keep skipping on my side. Hi, Melanie. Next one, why didn't Iran get the majestic carriers at Melbourne converted to Stoffel like India did? Because honestly, the Australian government was being as short-sighted as most Western governments are. And that's really saying something. I could have no iron brew. That would be annoying. Its audio seems to be loud and clear though. Oh, good. The videos are freezing a bit, but the audio is loud and clear. I'm glad that. When the video freezes, I have a feeling, and this is going to sound terrible, that is because of various other things it's doing. Sound is a bit weird. There might be another reason for the sound being weird. He's just thought. Because in his pockets, from earlier, are his headphones. And they have a habit of making sound go weird. So, hopefully, if they disappear, the sound will get better. And for everything else will get better. Good Lord. Crime stats? Hello everyone. Hello Azashore. Hello most of you. Did you run a speed test on the connection you're using? Yes, and this one's got up to 1,000 kilobytes per second, which is great. Quick, you can see my view. Not exactly sunny. Lovely, but not exactly sunny. It's very nice though. Honestly, I've been put up a lot stranger places. But is the buffering on the rear nice crisp still picture? Hello, sound's got a lot better. Sound is much better. Audio's got a lot better. Sound just got much better. That's good. Not sure if I asked before.
But is the spearfish too big for the audacious? Yes, just. They have to rework the whole thing. And it's getting a live update on the quality of the actual feed. So I know when it goes really, really bad kilobytes per second. No sound. Sound gone. Sound back. Woohoo! Video started losing. We'll see. We'll see how this works. Crisp picture. Oh, right. So, how is everyone doing? I have a burger. I have a nice looking burger. And I have an brew. But, most importantly tonight, I have this to talk about. This is one of my tutors has actually written this book, and they gave it to me to read, and it's pretty darn interesting to read. So, you know, I recommend having a look at it. If you're interested, there's a link down below. It's called Unmasking Corona, and it's by Derek Shortridge, who is a really interesting biology teacher. His son also, his very young son also has a YouTube channel, and links to both are down in the description. Because it's quite fun. I've got a sort of ring notifications coming through on my phone now. Is 4 hours anywhere near enough for IWM North? Yes, probably. It's not the most complicated museum in the world to go around. It's a recent build museum, so it's quite a straightforward line. So, how are you all doing? What's the questions of naval history going on in the world? What's the world like today? Science. And I know I should be recommending my colleagues who've written professors who've written papers, and they are massively qualified and they're wonderful papers, and I really do recommend those as well. But this is the sort of thing, if you read it at the beginning, it will make understanding all those academic papers and all those very complicated works so much easier. Oh, there's my burger. Basically, our plan for Moskva is Drac lands in the country with the assistance of various personalities in Drac's life. He's kidnapped, he's put in front of a computer, he's made to do build trumps, and then he's allowed to get some sleep. That's it. If Tirpitz wasn't in charge of the Imperial German Navy and it didn't grow to compete the UK, can World War I still happen? A war probably still happens, but the British probably don't get involved much. And if they do get involved, they probably get involved on the German side. Because if the Germans aren't a threat to the British naval strength, then who is the threat to the British naval strength? The Franco-Russian alliance. If it's the Franco-Russian alliance, then the British will beat up the French and the Russians. That was the thing the Germans really stupidly did, because by building a navy, they lost access to the world's largest navy and the navy which the country which had to build the largest navy as their ally. Instead of gaining strength, they turned their greatest asset into a weakness. So they shouldn't have done that. That was really quite stupid. Strategically. I think Bismarck agreed, which is one of the reasons why Bismarck doesn't stay in that power, in power, and has to go. Jungkook, how well do you think the Admirals would have fared if built as fleet carriers? I think they'd have been fairly good as fleet carriers. I think honestly, having around you think that would have been security, that would have been something quite powerful, quite strong for the Navy to have. And it would have probably accelerated the British approach to naval aviation in terms of strike. The food is very good. That's short. Seneca Nero, in 1923, HMS Hood gets stolen. The day before, a bunch of people with weird, nondescript accents were noticed around the harbour. And then night, someone saw the ship leaving harbour, flying the Jolly Roger. How did the RN go about and finding the ship and retaking it? Your only chances lie with renown and repulse. That's your only chances. It'll be whatever carrier's available, which is probably Furious to an extent, is possibly available at that point, and renown and repulse, and that's where you have to go hunting it because that's the only things you have that can catch it. Safety standards. I think there are certainly some strategic issues going on there we have to consider. Andrew, that would be a sight. The most powerful warship in the world engaging in piracy. It would be interesting. George Newman, do we need to warn you, Scotland Yard? Not anytime soon. I won't be nicking Belfast. Hyder? Well, you know. Colin Cameron. The UK had retained the territory ceded to it in the peace treaty to end the War of 1812. How do you think this would affect the RNUSN going forward, ship types, basing, etc.? You'd probably have ended up with the RN having a far stronger North American station and the USN responding to that. But the thing is, the USN would never get the funding they needed to properly respond. So they'd always be limited. I don't know much about the Grimsby class. Were they any good? The Grimsby class were actually very, very good. They were lovely little sloops, and they did very good jobs. And a lot of work. Seeing Congan, if the UK... I'll answer that one. At John South, almost 9... Great. One is a lovely white elephant, freeze an actual capability. Oh, good news about the Sovereigns. As of yesterday, she's off the bottom, and her list is down to 5 degrees from 15 degrees. That is very good news. CJ90, hello. I found a documentary on Russian Navy narrated by Robert Powell. Would you be interested? Yes, please. Send me a link. Khan, what did you choose to listen to on your way back? ACDC came up quite a lot. And for some reason, work. It was quite fun to listen to while walking back. Especially past some of the poshest and fanciest parts of London while doing so. Cody 85. How do various naval treaties work if carriers were rated by flight groups and speed? Well, A, you'd be making, if you were allowed a certain number of flight groups and carriers were limited of speed, or A, no comes, they could put more efficient designs on the carriers and carry more aircraft. So expect them to see them full of double-engined aircraft because they'll be fatter. Audio issues. Audio almost non-resistant. Oh, that's annoying. Your thoughts on Congo class designed around the Nagato class main turrets? Interesting, but complicated. Could you please shed some light on the planned Chilean naval expansion of 1919 to 21? My reading into it suggests the Princess Royal was offered as a substitute to Almirante Conquering, while many sources also suggest Inflexible and Indomitable were offered. Eventually, all this would fall through. Insights would be appreciated. Also, there seems to be information that Princess Royal would be refitted with Vickers 14-inch guns if she was transferred. Also, just how much use would Invincible-class battlecruisers be? For Chile, probably a fairly large amount, because look at who their opponents were. And basically, it's a continuation of the South American naval race. They're always at certain points planning on it, and it's always a potential. AC/DC. Well, I said M&M. Give me a second. I'm going to turn off one of the apps on my phone. So this could be highly interesting if it works. If it doesn't work, I'm going to be in trouble. But let's see. And turn that off, 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 and I need to clear all that and go to that. Basically, I'm shutting everything down. Yeah, that should work. Hopefully that's better. He says, hopefully. And hopefully the sound's better. But no, I was listening to AC/DC and M&M on the way back. For some reason, YouTube Music decided to combine those two. The FRA is a standard poodle. Yes, named Raleigh. Are you recording this later for locally for later upload? No, I'm not actually, sadly enough. To far larger aircraft being used. My second was HSMS Goethe Legion coming to the end of her life when Adrian's Conqueror sank during Bongrano. I have put this in chat already and haven't had an answer. Yes, to an extent. You can hope. And for the report, the Chilean question, basically, it's a continuation of the South American issues when it comes to the naval race. They're constantly having a naval race. Circle of Doom alternating with audio cuts. That's a shame because it's fun. Lots of fun chats going on, and I'm answering them. I'm trying my best to answer them, but it's the internet seems to be absolutely hello. Absolutely spook solid here. I'm not sure what's happening to the internet. What can I do? Well, we'll try. This is the best I can do in this particular scenario, but I will keep it up and see what we can persevere with. I'm not sure why it's being as problematic as it is. Sound died for several seconds again. That's not good, and it shouldn't be dying. Oh, God. Okay. Hopefully that makes things slightly better. I tried to make the sound less competition for media space. For some reason, it had something playing. Streamlabs Strava translates only every second word. Yeah. Yes, I am in a metal box. I'm in a very interesting metal box. It does probably affect things. Sadly enough. Right then. Oswilski, did really the UK not have enough money after World War One to finish any cruiser or preserve any battleship? World War Two was actually lazy political expansion by lazy politicians. Pretty much the lazy. Stephen Richards, what made the Colossus Majestics carriers such long-lived ships? They were easy to adapt. Wi-Fi. The hotel's Wi-Fi. I'm using. Royal New Zealand Navy getting 12 and the RAN and RCN getting 16 each. So you're building 32, 44 plus 40 odd for the Royal Navy. You'd be building a lot of the battle class destroyers. A lot of them. At a certain point, you'd be changing for Darings. In the nicest way, you'd get the 4.5 inch working. Hi, Glenn. And yes, even Canada did run a Colossus. Dennis Phillips. The Germans build 3 Scharnhorst derivatives and 3 carriers based on the same hull before 1941. How does it affect RN's strategy in World War II? Build more carriers. They're not too worried about the Scharnhorst unless they're armed with something bigger than 11-inch guns. If they're armed with something bigger than 11-inch guns, then they're probably worried. But if they're not armed with something bigger than 11-inch guns, then frankly, that's what you have the King George V for. And the King George V's will deal with the Scharnhorst quite happily. So that's not a problem. What's a problem and what becomes an issue is those aircraft carriers, and for that you're going to need to make sure you have your own carriers in service. Because the British have pretty much the same approach to things as the Russians. in that the best form of anti-tank weapon is your own better tank, and the best form of anti-battleship is your own battleship, best form of carrier, anti-carrier is your own carrier. I know Australia almost bought HMS Hermes, the Centaur class carrier, but what might they have called it? They'd probably kept Hermes. Honestly, the Australians do. Either that or they'd go for Sydney, Canberra, Adelaide. Then if the 14-inch restriction is now put in place, how does this affect battleships built for the South American nations? The 14-inch air restriction was never in place, so honestly, the battleships built for the South American nations were always going to be built when they wanted them, the way they wanted them, and that's the thing. They were offered the full gamut. If they wanted a 16-inch battleship, they could have got a 16-inch battleship. Is my phone plugged into power? Yes, my phone is plugged into power. And so, were any battleships ever actually sunk by shellfire? There are battleships as in pre-dreadnoughts or dreadnoughts, because yes, there are some pre-dreadnoughts sunk by shellfire. That are pretty much sunk by shellfire. There is the fact that some battleships were finished off with torpedoes mainly to sink them more quickly. They'd already been damaged enough by guns that frankly they weren't going to be coming back anytime soon. But mainly the coup de grace is delivered by torpedoes. Senator, in a stolen hood scenario, what would the RN do if after 2 weeks of searching they can't find a hood? How would they search then? There are limited places in the world where you can berth something the size of hood. There are even more limited places you can berth something the size of hood and get the fuel you need to move something the size of hood. In the nicest way, the British will start tracking the fuel supplies. Ian Richards, what's your favourite paper ship that was never built? Probably the F3. The almost Nelson Rodney, but the fast battleship version of them. Andrew Bull, in hindsight, knowing of the cost that the Tide class cruisers eventually ended up costing, would you rather build as Minotaur class design or possibly even Neptune class design? Oh, I'll take I'd take a Minotaur. They at least know how they're building them. Who knows? Sorry, meant for their theoretical replacements of the pre-World War I ships. Oh, they could have had up to 16-inch. 16-inch was the limit. Alistair Shaw, Hood, Bismarck, Charles, Washington, the victims. Ooh. Nice one. Why were the Majestics and Essentials able to operate Sea Harriers so easily? Because they were bigger than they needed to be to operate. Then Stuart, would there be a logic, assuming not, for heavily battleships equipped in torpedoes in the Dreadnought? Well, Admiralty kept coming up with this idea, but the trouble is, you could get a more level of guaranteed damage with your guns at longer range. So that's why you had the guns. The torpedoes were for the coup de grace, for finishing it off. But it's rare, unless you're a very fast, very high risk destroyer type, that you're going to get close enough in an early fight to launch a torpedo and have a guarantee of hitting it. And battleships and battlecruisers sunk by shellfire alone. Invincible, Indefatigable, Lutzow, Queen Mary, Hood, Yamashiro, Kirishima, and Scharnhorst. Pretty much. That's it. Scharnhorst almost had torpedoes stuck in her. Sijin 90. Do you think it's a major oversight that the Iron ships don't have anti-ship missiles? It's not something I'm exactly keen on. I'd like them to at least have something like Tomahawk cruise missiles, and that can have an anti-ship have an anti-ship role as well as a land attack role if you get the correct version. And yes, I do know that version is now currently rare as hen's teeth, but it's still there as an option. United, the Russians and Japanese had torpedo battleship ideas. They had lots of interesting ideas. Christopher Ryan, hello. What happens if cruiser tonnage only limits armour and firepower, but not fuel and power plant? I.e., you can only have 4,000 tons for guns, armour, and the fire control, but the rest is free. That's going to be very difficult to police. Because then there's the structure of the hull, and in the nicest way, oh, I've built this structural steel very, very thick, but it's structural steel, not armor steel, so it doesn't count to the weight. Yes, that's why my battleship weighs in at 18, my cruiser weighs in at 18,000 tons. Because I've used so much structural steel. Nice, am I right that the Admiral class battlecruisers couldn't use the all or nothing scheme? They weren't. Their hull wasn't really designed that way. No. Geoguy. Since Russia, Soviet Union had to essentially build 4+ separate navies, were there different design considerations between, say, the Arctic or the Black Sea? There should have been, but they didn't often always implement them. Secondly, in World War II, the Italians get modern self-guiding smart torpedoes. How would that change the war? The Royal Navy would be having a panic attack, and probably kittens. And mittens. Made of kittens. Yeah. Second, where in the world would you hide a ship the size of Hood? Iceland. Only place that you could support it, but not many people are going to be looking for it. Sure, it's the lack of missiles, the RN going, guns were good enough for Nelson, they're good enough for us. No, it's politicians going, we can save money. Nice, Aaron. If the Royal Navy got 3 renowned class battlecruisers and Hood before Washington Naval Treaty, does Tiger survive? Nope. Actually, she probably survives long enough for them to try and claim tonnage for her. The Royal Navy was not above trying to claim tonnage. I swear some of the ships they kept going were literally being kept going on paper for tonnage. They had no intention of actually keeping them anywhere near those.
it wouldn't be impossible to Iran to buy Tomahawk warhead body powertrain from the US and make their own seekers for the anti-ship work. No, it wouldn't have been impossible. And honestly, if we had been, the US Navy would probably be buying them off us. And honestly, it would have been a useful reason to carry Mark 41 VLS. Pardon me? Okay. So, Richards, was the Grimsby class used for the Atlantic convoys? They were used for the Atlantic convoys, but mainly they did the Arctic convoys. That's where you mostly find the Grimsbys, when you find them on convoy duty. They're going very, very cold, very nasty places. I think it might have been missed. What would the impacts have been if the space shuttle bomber concept had been successfully tested? Well, you'd have successfully militarized space. Not that we haven't already, if you consider the number of satellites we have up there. But, yeah, you would have had a global precision prompt strike system, which is almost unstoppable. Equivalent to a ballistic missile, but far more difficult to detect the firing of, because it could loiter potentially up there for days. So, yeah. It's fun. But probably you would also have had a Soviet equivalent built, and probably other nations would have rushed for their own equivalent. So who knows what could happen. We could have had an expansion of the space race. Colin Cameron, it's 1945 and the British Army finds all the Nazi gold and the UK keeps it and pay off the US debts and starts an integrated Commonwealth. What sort of navy does the Commonwealth build? Massive. Expect the Maltas to be finished, and lots of them. And probably, maybe another Vanguard, actually. Interesting enough. Hello, Sean. Nice hearing. Wouldn't the Icelandic government not tell the British that they found where the hijack hood is? Depends. Have they gone all Viking? Because in a nice way, if the Icelandic government is where the hood is hiding, then probably the Icelandic government who've decided to nick hood so they can go a Viking again. Or get the entire population of Iceland at some point, or no. Well, the population wants to go Viking. And Dribble, do you see ships like HMS President of World War I fame and HQS Wellington being converted to full museum ships instead of the roles they currently fill? HMS President is being converted to a full museum ship to an extent, as I understand it. HQS Wellington is a bit of a museum ship. You can go on her. She is a museum, and she's definitely worthwhile visiting. So, yeah, the thing is, if you convert them to a full museum, how are you going to replace the funding streams they currently have? And where's the money going to come from? That's the problem. Whereas with HQS Wellington, it's being looked after very, very well by some people who have got very deep pockets, and frankly, that's worth it. Raptor 4916. Any good memoirs for Iron officers in the early part of the 20th century? Well, recently, of course, I did Cunningham's memoirs. That's always a good one. But Vian's as well is one I'm hoping they bring out soon. I'm hoping they bring out a new version of Vian's. So there's the Sailor's Odyssey, which is good. Alex, how exactly would you target an anti-ship missile with the range of Tomahawk exactly? Well, the anti-ship variant of the Tomahawk was at 1,000 nautical miles, remember. It was 400 nautical miles, which is remarkably less. The options you could have used would have been strike fighters, providing the data, I think, i.e. F-35s or Harriers, but also you could use satellites and even, to an extent, your own helicopters. Especially if we're talking the things like the Sea King, Mark 7, etc. Not necessarily a good use of them, but they couldn't pick up things at a fairly considerable distance away. And just because you have a range of 400 miles doesn't even mean you're going to use it for 400 miles. The other thing about a missile with a range of 400 miles is you can thread out its route to obscure your own launching position, which means you might fire it at a target which is 300 or even 200 miles away, but have it go a circuitous route. As a shot, if the Renown and Impulse did catch up to Hood, would they be able to harm Hood without getting too damaged themselves, or would it just be an equal pounding? It wouldn't be exactly good for the Royal Navy's battlecruiser collection, let's put it this way. I doubt you'd have got through a scenario where one of them didn't at least get sunk. But you also have to remember the fact that they are technically 12 guns versus 8. So technically they do have a 4-gun advantage. And also, using only their forward guns, they match up with the entire the entire spread of Hood's guns. So if they were in a chase scenario, you'd have 8 guns to probably 4, unless Hood starts weaving to allow its forward guns to get involved in the action. Hello, Literacy DJ. Hello, you're on a song. Yes, and I have Literacy DJ is the very nice son of Derek, who has his own YouTube channel. Definitely worth looking at. But Unmasking Krona, as I said, one of my biology tutors has written a book, and it's available. There is a link down below. You know, it's worrying sometimes. It's one of the joys of working with Justin Craig. They do get some really seriously smart tutors, but sometimes you're having conversations with going, I'm going to have this conversation. Then in about 10 minutes, I'm going to be on Google, on academic Google, hunting for sources to try and explain what you were just talking about, because that phrase I haven't heard before. Prime Minister, what if the Salander affair had got hot, i.e. Sweden declares war on the UK and joins the Axis? How would this change the naval conflict? Not much, because Sweden's not got much in terms of navy that can come out and cause the Royal Navy trouble. It would have been interesting, though. And the Royal Navy would have probably ended up deciding that, frankly, the ships weren't worth it. But there again, what happens post-World War II to Sweden would have been equally interesting, because if we consider it, if Sweden declares war, then whilst Norway and Sweden are usually quite good friends, Norway could use that as an opportunity with the wider war effort as the war goes on, especially post-war, to get some territories back. Could also lead to an interesting scenario with Russia and Finland. We'll leave that to one side. Andrew, are there any surviving World War I Iron ships besides Caroline, M33 President, and the schooner Q ship Result? Not that actually fought in World War I. There are a few civilian ships still around. Hello, Jack Ray. Yamato 8125. Hello, Yamato. I don't think I've seen you in a while, so possibly not before, but I do remember the name, I think. I have a question. In 1945, were the Soviets able to make an amphibious operation in Japan in support of the US landings of Operation Naval? Nope. They'd have had to be brought over by British and American shipping. Which we were prepared to do, but only if we needed them. We didn't really trust them that much. 96831. The SN will be smart to give Hood back, as taking on will not go down while the British Empire could easily invade Iceland and force them to return the ship. That's not the point of going a Viking. Going a Viking is you don't return the ship. Going a Viking is you keep the ship and use it to carry on more a Viking. Hello, Stafford. No worries. Would the battle class have been a viable alternative to Fletchers for the West German Navy? If there were enough of them around, yeah, they could have been a viable alternative if the Germans had really wanted them. It's like anything, it's a viable alternative, but what they wanted to do was make nice with the Americans, so they wanted them, so political reasons. Interesting. I design an anti-ship missile as a two-stage unit. Stage 1 is subsonic and takes the missile 90 to 95% of its way to get target below altitude. Stage 2 is supersonic, separates and boosts the target. That's interesting. I say, in the Suez, is the Western Wyvern overlooked for its achievements? Yes, but that's mostly because it's a turboprop aircraft in a jet aircraft's world. Okay, sorry, just typing on. Where the heck are you? I'm in a hotel. I am going to do one thing, I have to say. One thing's annoying me a little bit. There you go. That. Hello. Hope that's better. So, in theory, if Hood sisters were flat-topped, would the RN then base next class a battlecruiser of renown and her upgrades, or are we looking at full-blown new design following the G3 designs? Probably to following the G3s with a hangar and, at midships and forward and main up. If the Hood sisters were flat tops, then you probably still have Ark Royal being the next custom built ship, the purpose built carrier. Conversations that require sources and explanation are best. They are fun. It's that's why I like working with. It's one of the strange things. People, the course directors have different reasons for doing the Justin Craig, and I'm always happy to do it. Who's written this book? But I've also got Paul Newton, who is really good. Really good. And I've got some chemists and all these. And you have some wonderful tutors you're walking through, and you sometimes wander into the rooms because you're paying attention. Because a good course director will wander into the rooms and listen a bit and think, I'm getting paid to be here and learn this stuff in 3 different and on there. So that class has great fun because they have me and the history teacher actually is also another. He also does course directing for Justin Craig. So we're both course directors. So we are both history teachers. So we're both sitting there chatting away, going da 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 da, and the kids are just going, "We're learning a lot of history here." Yep. And it's fun. It's what you like to do. And greetings. I sent along a link to a video about situational awareness, boredom, and UI design on the Moscow. Cool. Thank you. I'll enjoy looking at that later. Sweden becomes a legitimate target for Bomber Harris. Oh, that's always fun. Well, I'd say the Finns won the war against the Russians in terms of the Russo-Finnish War. They lost World War II versus the Russians. That's the problem. The Finns were winning right up until they sided with the Germans against the Russians, but they were kind of backed into a corner. They had to pick one or the other. Either way, it wasn't good. Tim T1, could Prince Eugen be kept and commissioned into the Bundesmarine in 1955 instead of sunk in a nuke test? No, no one's going to allow them to keep her. Reports, had the old South Dakota been built, would it be much more upgradable than the standards? A tad more, but really not that much more. But they would have had a lot more firepower to begin with, so it's a case of you'd have needed to upgrade their air defenses, you'd have needed to upgrade their engines, but you wouldn't have needed to upgrade their guns. So there would have been they wouldn't have needed to be upgraded as much. Honourable, similar affair. If Sweden joins the Axis, chances are you could have seen the Sverige class join to bomb. Would have Magister Militant Peroxens. Hello. Question. If Yamato wasn't sacrificed April 94, do you think the Japanese could have prevented the Soviets from taking the Kuril Islands? Probably. Anything turns up big in the Kuril Islands, the Soviets are in trouble. Eric Kaufman. Given the circumstances, I see Finland as the winner because they did way better than expected. Russia seems to have a history of getting into wars they don't actually win. Best hotel, London. I did show the train station at the beginning. One major problem, the Icelanders wouldn't know how to freaking use or fuel her. It was pointless to go Viking because they have nothing to stop the British occupying them. Have you told the Icelandics this? They are very, very Viking. Now, 8125. I have another question about Operation Downfall. What anti-kamikaze measures would be placed to protect the Allied fleet from kamikaze attacks? Basically, it's a variation of the Big Blue Blanket. And then after the US carriers are all down, well, that's when the Royal Navy carriers turn up. And the Royal Navy carriers are the critical thing. Because the Royal Navy carriers are the ones that can resist the attacks. Ba ba bum bum bum. Sound's gone now. Sound's back. Ooh. So it would be better to return the ship and save themselves a lot of these. Yeah, but as I said, they're a Viking. Sultan, I was considering the hangar conversion for the G3s as the extra eyes they would provide on distant screen. Hunting group for carriers allowing coordinated strike. To be honest, the G3s, if you build them sensibly, honestly, tacking on it, the more you tack on the back of the ship, the more you make that third turret absolutely pointless. I'm sorry, but the more you tack on the back there, the more you make it pointless. Is the hotel was ever better off streaming via mobile data? Is that better? Hello, everyone. Is mobile data better than Wi-Fi data? Hopefully it is. Oh, good lord, that's accelerated up. That's massively higher on the kilobytes range. So yeah, mobile data looks better than Wi-Fi data. Manchester Militant per Octagon. Have you seen the British battlecruisers in World of Warships yet? No. Not yet. I'm looking forward to seeing them when I get a chance. Jonathan Burrow, could the Lions have been converted into carriers? Well, yes, you can convert any ship into a carrier if you're prepared to spend the money. The thing is, would it be sensible to convert it into a carrier? No, it's already a very worn-out hull. Until I see the phone bill. Well, that's why this won't be done for too long. We'll keep this up for about 30 minutes. It's now not till the brew runs out, it's till Alex stops wanting to pay or doesn't want to pay a massive phone bill. Because as generous as you all are, and you are very generous, and I do love how kind and generous you are, I don't think I have the income to sustain that phone bill for longer than 30 minutes. Especially as I'm planning, all my money's currently going to Canada. Which is going to be a very fun trip. But I'd rather spend the money on Canada than a massive phone bill. If Midway ended with the US losing 3 carriers and Japan won, do you think logistical and escort to keep the island supplied would have hindered the advance towards Australia? Yes. I honestly don't think they'd have managed to get to Australia. In the nicest way, the Japanese were scraping at the edge of their barrel, and if they got to Australia, they probably have ended up running out of it. It's a long way to go, and it's going to take a lot of reports. They might have managed to get Darwin, but even then, going any further than that, they are going to end up losing a lot. And I mean this with the best possible affection for them. They would have ended up losing a lot of people to the Australian wildlife. That's true. It's hotel Wi-Fi. Sigh. Yes. And no crossfire. No third turret. No third turret. Replacing with catapults and hangar midships with similar aft section. That's an option, but honestly, I don't like that arrangement. As I've said many times, and I think Drax says something similar. When you're in a scenario where that's more useful than the carrier, or rather that's useful, that means you haven't got enough carriers. And really, you prefer to have the carriers. It's a case of let the battleships be battleships and battlecruisers be battleships and battlecruisers. Let the carriers do the recon, and that's ultimately the advantage of the carrier. They can do their own recon, their own long-range strike, and all those things can outpace the movement of ships. So the carrier is basically a mobile information warfare bubble, far beyond it's a mobile strike bubble and a mobile information and armor bubble. And as Paul points out, converting the Courageous class was better because they were longer and had oil-fired small tube boilers. Although I still think the Admiral class would have been far better to go with, and I have a sneaking suspicion that's what definitely the lovely people at Camel Earths are planning to do with their one. Which is why I always have it as the one that goes first. I do have unlimited data, so, well, when I say unlimited data, I have massive amount of data, so I'm okay. I've got the stream on the minimum for Streamlabs, as much as they can set it. So sure, Australia's massive. No. Here's the thing. In Australia, you have to remember you are not going in to fight the Australian army. They are not the real security of Australia. No, they are Her Highness, the High Emu's massed Royal Guard. Because, as we all know, it's the Royal Emu Guard which are the real fighting force in Australia. They are, after all, 1-0, 4 wins versus the Australian army. So therefore, the Australian army is technically not the most powerful army on Australia. It is the Emus. They merely let the Australian army provide the external security to their force. And should anyone come onto the island who they do not wish to be there, expect them to be wiped out very shortly. If they manage to survive, that's of course if they actually survive to get to the emus, because of course there is the kangaroo guard as well, who don't really have any sort of government or organisation, so have never actually fought a war versus anyone. But that's more because they believe in an almost hippie-style version of anarchy, but with a lot of violence involved. And should they decide they don't like you, well, your choice will be to fight the Australian army, the kangaroos, who will be coming at you kind of like a load of berserkers, but hopping and literally hopping day and night to get to you, or you can deal with the massed horde of emus who will be charging to overwhelm you. Look, either way, the Japanese are not going to win that fight. No one would win that fight. CM McDermott, relating to the conversation about Tomahawk. With the cost and weight of current missile seekers, might some countries consider a return to the kamikaze concept? Probably not really. It's a case of the kamikaze concept. It's not useful long term. And drones are enough of a kamikaze object, really. Ming Stewart, any guesses what the next piece for CB Enterprise is in my pile of Kobe bricks? Something white? That's not saying Black Widow's special forces. The Black Widows so much aren't special forces as how do I put this politely? The Black Widows are sort of... Okay, if we use the example of Batman, there are some people in this world who just like to see who just commit violence just to make it see it burn because it's fun. That is your Black Widow spider. When it gets pissed, when it gets annoyed. Black Widows. Angela, how feasible would it finish Anson and Howe as carriers from the perspective of getting them within 33,000 tons? It's doable, and yes, there's a reason I've included it in the videos I've discussed. In fact, I even put together the options of which order they do them. They do them in. So the Roos are anarcho-capitalists, and the emus are the dominant socialist regime. The emus are a very strict monarchy, a very solid cavalry formation, and make the whole French army from the 100 Years' War feel like they are lacking in discipline. Mitchell Oates, after watching your last UAD video, are you saying they've managed to create the AI equivalent of BT? No AI can be created to be quite that bad. But they have certainly had some fun with it. Any thoughts on a recent Solomon-China treaty? We are not at the end. We are not even at the middle. We are not even at the end of the beginning. We are in the first stages of what will be a very long and very interesting development. And it is very careful, it is very unjudicious of anyone to judge things and judge a chess match from the movement of the first pawns. Because someone can make the most startling and brilliant maneuvers with their pawns and then muck up when they're moving everything else. And if you want a good example of that, we have currently what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. In that Russia was making all the moves of their pawns and doing very well. But the moment they started the main attack with the principal units, boom, 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 they're in trouble. And things no longer look so straightforward or so simple. Malaga, I'm trying to find the numbers of pre-dreadnoughts in use all over the world around 1906 without much luck. What do you suggest I look for this? I'm going to be naughty. I'm going to suggest you look at Wikipedia, work through them from there, and look at the sources they come up, because there isn't one really good all the world's pre-dreadnoughts, because there's differing arguments over what's a pre-dreadnought. So first of all, you have to decide what kind of level you consider to be a pre-dreadnought, and then work through that and work through the appropriate sources. So go use the Wikipedia notes, stuff down at the bottom of the Wikipedia page. Go to them and use them. So go to the various pre-dreadnought pages and look at see what sources they're using and build up from there. But it's probably going to take a few books. Georgine, question: how do the Emus and Roos feel about Yanks? To be fair, in World War II, I think there was a story about a Yank unit which actually was exercising and found itself surrounded by kangaroos, and might have drunkenly challenged some of the kangaroos to a fight and lost. But we'll leave that to one side. I think they also did win some of the fights with the kangaroos, but you know. These things happen. They're US Marines, they're drunk, they've just been through a very, very challenging campaign, if I remember the story correctly. I think they've been through the Guadalcanal, that sort of thing, and they've been sent back to Australia, and some unit of them ended up in a weird scenario with kangaroos. Actually, does Iceland have enough people to operate an Naval class battlecruiser? You keep forgetting that Iceland has a huge fleet at this time of ship merchant, quite a large merchant marine for frozen fish and all sorts of things. So yeah, they have quite a large number of people who could operate ships. It's one of the reasons why I picked them. There's Jane's, and there's the one that I prefer. Don't have one with me, unfortunately, otherwise I'd remember it. Brassies. Jane's and Brassies are a good starting place, but I would go and start with the bottom of the Wikipedia pages. Honestly, because the people who do actually edit the Wikipedia pages, I don't trust the Wikipedia content because anyone can edit it, but the people who actually are good at it and do it properly are obsessed with their sources, and so tend to give you good source lists at the bottom. It's true, in war all things are simple, but even the simplest things are very complicated. Ah yes. Misquoting Clausewitz quite well. Okay, remind me to take Australia out of my future travel plans. Southampton, would you consider a T-26 to be a modern equivalent to the Wickes class of cruisers, or would it be the Burkes? I'd say it's more a Leander class. If you consider the Australians are going full amphibians with it, i.e. they're producing something completely different. Hello, Michael Patton. Interesting. Britain would almost suddenly get a third Nelson. We'd probably get an F3 version of a Nelson if Hood disappears into thin air. Honestly, if we got Nelson and Rodney, then she's going to be St. Vincent. Don't take this the wrong way. They're just going to go with that because they're going to want to get the big ones from the Age of Sail. In that period, that's what the Royal Navy would go for. Yes, historically they do include Anson, and they're very proud of that. But that's when they got King George V, Prince of Wales, Duke of York. So they already got some high status names in there, and the rest are just rounding out the numbers. And they want to retain high status names for the next class of battleships. So yeah, there is no surprise that, honestly, if they'd be doing a battle cruiser, and it would be called St. Vincent probably. I think, what would have been the ramifications of Suez if the USA had sided with the UK and France? If the UK and France had won, it could have been interesting. I don't think there would have been a world war. I think there could have been an ongoing conflict in Egypt. It could have led to regime change. It might not have done. It's honestly difficult to work it out once you start going into that sort of area, because that's a very complicated and meaty period. Nice, everyone. I've answered that question, and I think I said yes, they would have been a viable alternative if there'd been enough of them built, and if the West German Navy hadn't been trying to get close to their American counterparts to make up for, well, actually build a relationship. I know you're very busy, but I was wondering if you've had a chance to look at the paper I was sending yet. No, it's on my reading list for Tuesday, actually. Sorry about that. I should have mentioned that. Son of the Seas versus Trim Comely. Who wins? Later class. Ooh. Never count out Trim Comely. She's a very good frigate, but Sovereign of the Seas technically should win. Technically should win. Technically it should be Sovereign of the Seas, but I wouldn't like to try to count out Trim Comely. Take care, Jonathan Murray. Senator Richards, how is the camera situation for Canada being resolved yet, Doctor? Not yet. The camera situation has not been resolved yet. I have been looking around. I went into a couple of stores and had a chat with people in person. And I'm having a look online. I'm still trying to figure it out. Hello, Colin Cameron. Going back to the early carrier question. If the limit was air group size and ship speed, is this a scenario where we would get an HMS Haverkak built? Doubtful. But you could get some very large carriers, because in the case of, yes, this ship's only carrying 60 aircraft. What are those 60 aircraft? As you can see, they're 60 Lancaster bombers. No, it'll be more likely 60 twin-engined bomber aircraft, because your incentive would be to build as larger aircraft as you possibly could. So you'd end up with twin-engine torpedo bomber types. And fighter types. Could the Colossus class have been Stubble converted like the Marissa class was? Yes, being Stubble converted is really not that difficult for those sorts of ships. So if armor belts for dreadnoughts and later long lead items, how are they quickly repaired or replaced during war? Believe it or not, they had sections of armor plate sitting around, waiting for such a reason. You would have them stored in places. You would bring them from the storage, and you would cut. Basically, you would cut the hole. You would hope the hole was bigger. It was smaller than one plate. Cut out a space big enough for the one plate. Stick in the plate, and then put it in place. If it was bigger than that, you were sticking in multiple plates. Sorry for being quiet, but I'm afraid I have bad news. I have now booked almost everything for the trip to North America. Just need to book to one, book flight home, and two, change name to Alex. That's not bad news. That's good news. I hope as you're coming to all these things, Canada, and it's going to be fun. And book flight home and change name to Alex. Well, the Alex isn't necessary, definitely. The flight home probably is sensible. Andrew, 1:30 here, so I should head off. Take care. Okay, what if Hood gets stolen, but in 1936 gets returned? People who stole her say they took her on a 1 week cruise and still think it's 1923. There are probably a lot of very amused faces, and there's probably now a very large vessel sitting around there, being built in the 13 years previous to replace her into the Royal Navy service. Probably a true fast battleship, so that would be interesting. Also, those same Wikidata that are pedantic about sources. Yes, they do tend to be also watch new edits like a hawk, and they do tend to do that. But there are time. It takes time for them to deal with those things. Trust me, I've seen them. I have to try it. Pigeon 90. Did the Iron have a carrier-borne twin-engine torpedo bomber? They were looking at it by the end of World War II. You see, prior to World War II, it wasn't really sensible because you had a limit on your carrier, so the most efficient aircraft was single-engine aircraft for your carrier types. But again, it would have alleviated a lot of the problems for the Royal Navy in terms of the horsepower race if they could have gone for twin-engine aircraft. Christopher Ryan, how did they cut battleship grade armor plate? Well, honestly, most of it was, if it was within a section of a plate and it was held in place by rivets, they cut out the rivets and they put in a new plate. If they had to remove it, well, more than that, then you had cutting torches, you had all sorts of tools at your disposal, including things which looked not too dissimilar to the jaws of life that firemen use in car crashes, and basically went at it. Using this, a twin-engine carrier aircraft, so they aren't using a Sea Mosquito the same way the Ascend tries to use a Super Hornet for everything. Yeah, pretty much. Was the capacity of cranes limiting size a factor on the size of turrets? No, because they tended to put then try and divide the basically how do I put this, componentize the turret sections, but they were also building bigger turrets, bigger cranes. It's also, as Cedric 90 pointed out, it's also why the Iron preferred external belts after Nelson's, because it was easier to replace. Right then, I've just got a warning that the phone is overheating now. Ooh, that is hot. So, that looks like the phone is saying this is an end. So I'm going to answer the last few questions, and then I'm going to say thank you very much, everyone, for watching, and then I'm going to say goodnight. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sorry it hasn't been up to its usual standard, but at least now we know for future this is what I need. That I need to be prepared to do this as my backup and have it as working. I also need to make sure I have something better than this for it in future. Thank you, Emperor Reform. What if the Malta-class carriers were built instead of the Audacious class? How would that affect the Cold War on aviation? It would have gone on a lot longer, would have been a lot bigger, and would have been a lot cheaper to operate. Thank you. So
Thank you, everyone. I have tried XSplit again to say thank you, goodbye. Liquid cooling for phone sounds like a very sensible idea. French were also working on twin engine carrier bomb torpedoes. They were. Take care, Stafford. Thank you for watching. Thank you, George Newman. Thank you, CM McDavitt. Fun fact, the Jaws of Life won't cut the B pillar on Subarus. They welded in a piece of hardened rebar for side crash protection. Yeah, they don't. Shit, Hannah. Take care, CM McDavitt. Thank you, Glenn Stewart. Thank you, Imperator, for on. And thank you, Jack Ryan. What if the multi-class were built instead of the Audacious class? Well, as I was saying, when the Streamlines went silent, the RN would have had far stronger naval aviation, would have had it for far longer, would have had far bigger, more capable naval aviation. Also, trying for high speeds and range search capability. That's good. Take care. The phone was very interesting. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Thank you. Thank you, good night. And Colin Cameron, if you use the phone as your backup, be careful, as no matter what calling, you can fry the battery. Yeah, I think one of the problems is it's the cases in, because the cases in is very, very good at keeping the insulation in. So that was interesting. And I've got to get a new one. The phone is supposed to be replaced, I think, soon. Take care, Ethan. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you very much, Aaron. Thank you, Stafford. Thank you, everyone. Hope you're well. And yeah. Thank you. It's not working that well, but hoping and saying goodbye. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for watching, and hope you enjoyed it. And I will try and do better next time when I'm on the move. Thank you. Take care.